This podcast was recorded on January 21st, 2017. My name is Michael.
What's good? I'm Dominic.
And my name's Justin, and just a quick disclaimer, the views and opinions I express here are mine and mine alone, and they do not reflect the stance of the United States Air Force or its affiliates.
All right, so this here you are listening to Grab 'em by the Policy,
The official podcast of the Independent Interference.
The Independent Interference is a small website and podcast run primarily by me, Justin, and Dominic. We address topics all across the political spectrum and appreciate input from anyone of any stance or viewpoint. A quick warning, neither the website nor this podcast avoids sensitive topics. We will curse and use language or address certain stances that may offend you. You have been warned, and anything that comes thereafter is your responsibility and yours alone. Our topics for today are Obamacare, specifically Trump's executive order regarding it, and the Republican Congress repeal process. Topic number 2 will be Planned Parenthood, especially the federal funding cuts. And topic number 3 is a little bit on Anonymous, the hacktivist group. Dominic has some news regarding their claims against Donald Trump and the option of Russia being aggressive towards the United States. So let's start it off with the Obamacare, specifically Trump's executive order. For those of you that don't know, yesterday, January 20th, the 45th president officially became Donald J. Trump. He was inaugurated in Washington, D.C., and one of his first moves was passing an executive order that will help the Republican Congress further repeal Obamacare, which they've started over the past week or so. Just want to get Dominic and Justin's perspectives on Obamacare, the repeal process, anything of that nature.
You know, I'm kind of undecided on it. I mean, I don't have a teleprompter. It sounds like you have one, but I'm just kind of going like off the dome.
Yeah.
I'm not really decided on it. I do think that there are good and bad things that come to each side. I think that the good things are that people who don't have medical coverage and care obviously do have it through Obamacare. Although I think it's tougher on working class people because it's like, I mean, let me give you an example. So I was working at a restaurant, right? And I'm working there. I'm like, hey, do you guys offer benefits if we work full time? Their response was, we're not going to let you work full time because then we'll have to give you benefits, and we can't afford that because of Obamacare. Now that's where I think things get a little sketchy, because it's like, if I'm working and I'm busting my ass to try and provide for me and my family, I need medical coverage. And given a restaurant is not a career job, or at least not in my eyes, it's not a career job, especially what I was doing. I was washing dishes. But I'm 19 years old. Things happen. I could be driving down the street and get in a car accident. I need medical coverage. So then it just throws me on Obamacare because I can't get medical through my job. And I think that's where people look at it like it's such a great thing. Everyone's getting it. But people who are working and busting their ass, they could get it. You know?
Yeah, the primary issue people bring up is that your work is mandated to give you health coverage due in part to Obamacare. So the whole idea is it's a heavy weight on small or mid-sized businesses, because now if they hire a 19-year-old who's working full-time, they now have to at least, I believe, offer, if not give you, a level of medical coverage.
They have to give you medical coverage.
Right, and that's a big expense for any level of business, really, but especially small or mid-size, especially if something goes wrong.
Well, I mean, you look at those mom and pop businesses, and it's just like they're gonna go under. There's no way a mom and pop business is gonna survive like that.
And also, you have to look at it when Obamacare was first being implemented. I think it was 4 years ago about, and I remember people were getting taxed because they didn't want to sign up for it, and they wanted to keep their primary health provider, and they couldn't, and they were being punished for it, and that was a big thing. And it seemed like it was implementing such a socialistic, society almost. Yeah,
it is it comes from a socialist idea, definitely.
But being punished for not doing something, or switching to a government aid almost.
Okay, but look, you also got to look at this. So we are a socialist and a capitalist society, correct?
Right. We're supposed to lean a bit more towards capitalism, and that comes into the debate of how
seems
far.
Like as of recently, people are wanting to shift towards more socialist views.
Correct.
But so then that brings up, we do want everyone to have medical care, right? It's not something that we don't want. It just needs to be implemented the right way. For me personally, I think that Trump has the opportunity. I feel like Trump has the opportunity to repeal it and then put something forth that will do better than that, or what he feels will do better than that. And I think that would be the smartest way to go about it. Because when someone brings out a new phone, the competitors aren't just taking the phone away. They're trying to bounce off that idea and make better things happen.
Right. And that transitions perfectly into the next part, which is Senator Rand Paul, who has sort of been leading this whole movement in the Congress, which is now controlled by Republicans after the election, to replace the legislation, taking ideas from both the Republican and Democrat side of it. And his claim that was made the morning of the 20th on MSNBC's Morning Joe, he claims that the legislation will drop on Tuesday or Wednesday for criticism, input, and potential changes before brought to the actual Congress floor to be voted on. What they've said so far, again, this isn't like an official legislative language just yet, is this idea of you have a set sort of funding given by the federal government, and then it's up to you as a citizen, where do I put this money towards? It also falls to the government to make sure that premiums for health insurance or life insurance or whatever you're looking for aren't jacked up so high that now the common citizen who isn't applying for that aid can't afford it, and then you get every citizen on some level of federal aid. So the idea is to balance that, make sure insurance doesn't cost too much, and then giving people the ability to purchase insurance, but having it be their responsibility. Right now, the way the system stands is if your health insurance is through, the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, any version of it, if something goes wrong, it falls on the government. The government gets to decide. The government makes your decisions and puts the money where you want it. And from a citizen, you put in, this is what I need. This is my perspective on it. And they try and help as much as possible. But your choice has been taken away, which is.
Yeah, but I think. But look, I think that people today, like you look at people who are socialists, that have socialist views. You look at people like just the people alone, because obviously I'm in California, I'm in the Bay Area. The people alone, like I could go to Berkeley.
Correct.
What kind of people I'm seeing. Everyone knows what kind of people I'm seeing. People who want stuff handed to them. I'm not seeing people who are busting their ass to get what they want. I'm seeing people who are like either, oh, daddy's got money, or oh, I'm fucking getting money somehow, but I want more handed to me. You know what I mean? So with that, I don't think that people have that big of a problem with the government taking the decision into their own hands. I think that a lot of people in this area want that, and the fact that
that's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
No, it is very dangerous.
Yeah, that's the point.
I don't think that people understand that, and that's what I feel is the real danger, is that the people don't understand that, and that's where I feel the real problem lies with the decision between Obamacare and no Obamacare.
And this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but then it's time to help them understand by the fact that you're not going to get the government handout. You're not going to be able to live entirely off of federal taxpayer dollars that are taken from everyone. Because the problem is, it's not just people who are on Obamacare paying for Obamacare. It's people who are on private insurance whose taxes are being used to cover someone that they will probably never meet in their entire life. And honestly, from a more libertarian perspective, the duties of the government are almost solely protecting their citizens.
Exactly.
The sole duty of the federal government and state government to any level is you're protecting your citizens. You're making sure their standard of living is suitable. You're making sure they're protected from threats, both foreign and domestic. That's why that's in the oath taken by military personnel and the president, because that's their duty. Nowhere in the president's draft does it say it's your duty to provide health insurance for anyone as long as they demand it from you hard enough. The duty is solely, now, that's open to interpretation, what defines as protecting people. But Obamacare isn't protecting you from threats, foreign or domestic. It's not. It's allowing you to take other people's taxpayer dollars.
I mean, it's still open for discussion at that point because
right.
When you talk about threats, foreign and domestic, that could be a virus. That could be an illness, you know.
Right, but then if that became rampant, then the CDC steps in. Obamacare would not change that at all. If it becomes an epidemic, then it's up to the CDC and the World Health
You don't understand
Organization.
what I'm saying. You don't understand what I'm saying. Hold on. What I'm trying to say is that could be a virus. That could be the flu, Mike.
No.
Right. Interpretation. Dominic. Listen, Justin. Hold on. Let me say my point.
Yeah.
That
let him
people's
finish
interpretation could be the flu, right? And then their interpretation then says the government needs to protect me from the flu. How do you get protected from the flu? You have health insurance.
Well, I mean, flu shots are like what, $20-$25 even without insurance.
But that's the point, is they want it taken care of.
Right. But so the thing is, you need to break that. That is the idea of the welfare state.
I mean, I completely agree with that. I think it should be broken too. I'm just trying to get a little insight on other people's minds.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're really getting overall, is that idea of people voting for Bernie Sanders. Sorry, go Justin.
Dominic, you're also taking that quote out of context. If we're referring to the oath taken by military personnel, the president, it is to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. A disease is not, it doesn't threaten the Constitution. A disease doesn't threaten it. Like global catastrophe doesn't threaten it. It's legislation that it's, and enemies that are trying to tear down the not necessarily the legislation, but
see, but that's where it's
what the Constitution. You can't really interpret it differently, though. I mean, you could think about it, be like, okay, in Africa we have Ebola. If Ebola came to America, that doesn't necessarily affect the legislation and the Constitution itself.
Okay, so then what's up with like chemical warfare and stuff, or chemically, I don't know how to put it. Design diseases, pretty much. So if, like,
Obamacare doesn't make a difference with that, is what we're trying to say.
But look, if Germany says, "Hey, we're gonna go fucking," or I mean, I don't know why the fuck I said Germany, just like Nazis.
Any foreign nation,
but
yes.
If Germany or any foreign nation says, "Hey, we're gonna make this disease, we're gonna implant it into America," that's still the same thing. You know what I mean?
That doesn't.
But then it's an act of terrorism. Like, that's something entirely different. Obamacare doesn't cover epidemics. It covers, hey, you broke your arm or your daughter's sick. Let's use federal taxpayer money to give her, first of all, subpar health insurance. If you look at most of the Obamacare plans, they are not nearly as good as if you worked and got a private healthcare plan or healthcare through your employer. They're not nearly as good.
That's not true.
The vast majority of Obamacare programs, if you worked and you saved up your money and you, again, the whole point of capitalism is you work for what you get. The idea of sitting there and getting Obamacare while not working, you're stealing. At that point, you are literally stealing. You're taking money from other people
who are
working.
Taking a handout that the government's providing.
You're stealing. The government is stealing, and then you're taking the product of their theft.
But the government is always fucking stolen. The government is fucking crooked. That's, it's just another thing that they're taking.
Correct, but
you pay taxes either way, right?
Yes, but taxes go up in response to Obamacare.
Okay, but they take taxes either way, right?
They were divided differently. I think
do they take taxes? Do you get a tax taken out of your paycheck?
Yes, I get tax taken out of my paycheck.
Then the fucking government is stealing from you. You think
no, because when that money goes towards the duty of the government, then it's not stealing.
Okay, well then let's question the duty of the government then. Because let's talk about, okay, you get money taken out of your taxes. Do you know where every single dollar is going? I want to know where every single fucking penny is going out of those taxes.
That you can kind of figure out, but it's more difficult.
Like, you got motherfuckers trying to find aliens. Is that protecting me?
Yes.
I mean, theoretically, but there's no government department specifically made toward finding aliens.
I mean,
NASA does research regarding, extraterrestrial life or whatever. It's a part of the research as a whole.
Okay, but that's also just.
But there's no department of right. What they do is money goes towards.
You know what? If I give somebody money, like say I give you $20, right?
Right.
Not all the time, but most of the time I'm going to be like, hey, what are you going to spend that $20 on? And you're probably going to have to tell
Right.
me just for me to give you that $20. The
Right.
government doesn't tell me shit about where my money's going.
Well, you can look it up based on total tax revenue and then percentage of where it all went. You can figure it out.
Well, you have your state taxes, and then you have your national taxes. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. State taxes go for like better roads, schools, whatever, so be it. Then your federal taxes, they go towards the military. They go towards stuff like Planned Parenthood, stuff like that, government
funded programs.
Exactly. Welfare, food stamps, Obamacare, stuff like that.
So I think overall, what we're kind of agreeing on, we're gonna close out on the Obamacare and get to the Planned Parenthood. But I want to make a final statement, and if either of you two do as well, feel free. The Obamacare thing, as it is right now, is really subpar. I think that's due to the original plan being very much rooted in like socialism, in removing options from the general populace. Therefore, the Republicans, as this was going through Congress, fought a lot of parts of Obamacare. And then it was sort of just messy overall. It wasn't fully socialist, which would have been bad, but it wasn't really leading towards capitalist either. It was this real bad mess. So now what we're seeing is, yes, the Republicans want to repeal the current version, and come, somewhere between Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to see the legislation of the proposed replacement, which is taking perspectives from both Democrats and Republicans. And then, my hope is high that this plan will be better. It will provide people with options while also helping them afford good healthcare coverage. Either of you want to make, sort of a final statement on Obamacare?
I mean, I just think it's important to, I think that a lot of people think the repealing of Obamacare is just going to lead to nothing.
Right, and that's because the announcement that they're making a plan, it's not broadcasted, which boils down to, you've said it before, I think we've all agreed on it, is a lot of manipulation by media, there's big stories going on right now that are more important to people than that, so they're taking up a lot more airtime, is another one. But
that's a whole nother topic.
Right, that's a whole nother topic. But do you have a final statement, Justin?
It's important. Well,
I
didn't even finish mine. I think it's important. Yeah, fuck you, Mike. I think that it's important to have a plan afterwards, and I think that not as many people should realize it, and a lot of people should realize it, but I don't think as many people are realizing it, that there is going to be an afterwards plan. Like, there's going to be a plan after this.
Well, right now the plan is, as it's being fully repealed, to institute this new one side by side. So that's even better. If everything goes according to projections, there's not going to be a single day when you don't have the ability to get some level of federal assistance for healthcare. They're going to come and go parallel to each other. Mm-hmm.
So, as far as final thoughts go, personally, I believe the concept of Obamacare, conceptually, it's a great idea. But also, if you look at history, there have been a lot of good ideas that were great in concept. Look at communism, for example. Communism is fantastic by concept, but it's how it's executed that it's looked down on. And I believe it's the same thing with Obamacare. I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been, and as well as it should have been. I've seen a lot of good I've seen good and bad from Obamacare, but I just believe it needs to be changed to where you have the option to sign up for it, you have the option to enroll in it, and you also have the option to stay with where you're at. And I just believe it needs to be adjusted to, further suit the needs of the people. And
America,
and not necessarily support the people that are sitting and collecting paychecks from the government for doing nothing.
Yeah, that's my primary concern is the welfare families that are just collecting taxpayer dollar checks and not really doing anything to better themselves or their future generations.
That's that has to be a target with this next plan. But we'll
And it will be.
move
Yeah.
into the next topic, which Justin brought
So
up
now
a little bit.
we're moving
earlier.
into the idea. Speaking
The
of federal
Planned Parenthood.
funding,
Yeah,
the
Planned Parenthood.
the idea of Planned Parenthood being funded by federal taxpayer dollars. Currently, the sort of projection, I'm reading this off of lifenews.com, which is a pro-life website. So the perspectives are obviously a bit manipulated, but I think the timing and announcements are generally pretty accurate. Right now, they're saying that Donald Trump's current commitment is to sign an executive order to defund Planned Parenthood from federal dollars either Sunday or sometime during this next week. So I know my stance is that I disagree with Planned Parenthood being funded federally. I know Dominic has a different perspective on that.
Yeah, I do have a different perspective on it. I mean, Justin, what's your perspective? We'll get everyone's perspective out there first.
I don't know. I haven't really formed that much of an opinion on Planned Parenthood. It hasn't really been the focus of my thoughts lately. It's been more towards doing other things which are not relevant to this conversation.
Trying to become a parent.
No. No.
All right.
That is not in the works.
Yeah,
my friend.
no. Okay, so but what I was gonna say, Planned Parenthood for me is an important thing. I think that we need it. I think that if we're gonna be involved with healthcare and things like that in people's lives, I think that we need to be. Planned Parenthood still needs to be there, and it needs to be funded by the government. Mike, I know you said before the whole podcast, you said that there was a bunch of shit going on behind the scenes with like sex trafficking, shit like that.
Yeah.
I think that putting Planned Parenthood back into like a private thing, I don't know, what would you call it? A private like
a private organization.
Organization,
instead of one
that's the word I was looking for. Putting it back into a private organization, I think that leaves more room for that. I think that leaves more room for behind the scenes shit. I mean, you look at the churches, dude. Churches, you know, it's the proof is in the pudding. It's right there.
So, real quick, I have a graphic open up from the Washington Post regarding.
Man, Mike, I feel fucking dumb. I don't have my computer here. Like,
no, it's good. No, I'm providing the information. We'll take it as we.
But is it biased information? Is it biased towards your opinion?
No, this is pure fact from the IRS. It's just posted through the Washington Post. So the fiscal year that ended in June 30th, 2014, is the most recent year for IRS confirmed information from Planned Parenthood. They received $528.4 million in government funds between federal, state, and some local government dollars. $305.3 million came from non-government sources, and $257.4 million came through private donors and foundations, whether it be, a walk or a 5K or whatever, giving parts of their funds to the organization. And then they raised $54.7 million in fees charged for services. So right there, to break it down, 41% of their funding comes from the federal government. If you took that completely away, Planned Parenthood would obviously need to request, more money from private contributions, private health services, and raising money.
It would lose a lot
of their own. Right, but then so the thing is, unwanted pregnancy and abortion rates have been going down. So technically speaking, if majority of their money goes towards, 1 second, I had it right here.
Well, I mean, isn't that Planned Parenthood doing its job, Mike?
Well, no. If it's an unwanted pregnancy or a low abortion rate, right? So they don't need. Is the thing? Planned Parenthood provides help for unwanted pregnancy and abortions. So if those are going down, they no longer need as much money to cover that.
It's because they're working, Mike.
If they provide abortions and you need less abortions, how does? I mean, that doesn't make a correlation.
Because they also provide contraception.
Right. But that's my thing. Is if the STI and STD catch rating, I mean, obviously the current people diagnosed is remaining the same, but the amount of people who are getting it is going down. That's 42% of their services is STI testing and treatment. If the projections are going down, you can scale back from that. If the abortion services account for between 3 to 5%, depending on who you ask, abortions are going down pretty significantly. You can scale that back a little bit. The idea isn't, I mean, cutting federal funding completely, I don't agree with. I think you could definitely have some contribution. Right now,
You want a reduction.
Right now, I think the fact that the federal government provides most of Planned Parenthood's funding is BS. I think they can.
41% isn't most, Mike.
Yes, it is compared to all the other. Right, but compared to all the other contributors, they provide the most. 30% is from private contributions, like donations. 23 is from non-government health services, and 6 is from the fees they charge. So out of all those, the government provides the most.
Covering the most.
Right, but as an independent contributor, the government provides the most, is what I was saying.
Okay. As an independent contributor, yes.
Right. So I think that's BS. I think, honestly, the reason people aren't donating as much is due to the fact that the federal government covers so much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but it in
so
my
you
eyes,
scale
it's
back.
null and void. I still think that they should be funding Planned Parenthood. It's doing its job.
Well, then if it's
Things
doing its job, make sure
that unwanted pregnancies, unwanted abortions, they're going down. You said STIs or STI treatment was going down too?
Well, they provide the number of people who have STIs. If you're testing for an STI, that would presume someone has it is when it becomes necessary. Treatment necessity is also going down.
Now, what I think, instead of defunding it or instead of reducing what you're funding it, I think that they should put more into education. I don't think that.
Okay. Well, then what you need to do then?
I think that they should put more into sexual education because look, what was the last sex ed class that you had, Mike?
I took one in sophomore year, and I do admit, when it comes to sex ed, the majority of the United States is getting some really convoluted ideas behind it.
Justin, when was the last one you took?
That's what?
Sex ed class, health or whatever in high school.
Sex ed class, last time I took it was freshman year.
Okay, because the last time I took it was in with Miss Monzingo in 5th grade. That was the last time I had an actual sex ed class. Now, I had people come in and be like, oh, like, you got to be careful with sex every now and then. Right. It wasn't necessarily a class. There wasn't, it wasn't like that. I think that it should be an actual class. I think this should be added to curriculum. And if you can't make it an actual class, I think every teacher has to have a designated period of the school year where they talk about it, or a designated period of every day where they talk about it. People read for 30 minutes a day in class sometimes, right?
I had that at Los Lomos.
You sit there and you read in English class, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about sex.
I think the vast majority of the country has the health semester mandated, which doesn't focus entirely on sex ed.
Who don't, and that's
it's a heavy portion.
And the fact that, like, what do we do with Felice? We had some chick come in for 20 minutes and talk to us and show us like a video about like how getting pregnant when you're fucking broke is bad. Like, no shit, thanks, dumbass.
Right.
But what does that prove? Like, I could come up to you and say, hey, Mike, did you know that being broke and having a fucking child is a bad idea?
Well, right, and I understand that. I think then the issue that we both have then is Planned Parenthood is halfway between a private organization and a government organization. They're receiving government dollars, but really aren't being checked by the government very much.
Honestly, I think that it needs to go full government.
Then you need more regulation for it. If it's receiving that much money, it needs to be more examined and regulated by the government.
Well, if it's already fucking receiving that much, why not just fucking take it over?
Then go for it. Then the problem you have with that is the people that say, "Oh, I don't want the government telling me what to do with my vagina."
Okay,
and it's
you
have to compromise.
But that's the thing. Mike, you can't tell someone, "Hey, you want an abortion, but you can't fucking have it." You can't do that. Because you know what
I never.
That leads to
Well,
sticking a fucking coat hanger up your pussy and trying to fucking grab your kid. Like that.
Right. I don't. I think from my perspective, I believe abortion is wrong. However, I don't believe. I think it also definitely depends on time frame, but I do not believe in wasting taxpayer money telling people not to have abortions or enforcing not having abortions.
Wasting it on fucking welfare families. Why the fuck
not? Right. So that's what I'm saying. You can provide abortions. We should not have legislation saying, "Hey," I mean, after a certain extent, obviously, late-term abortions, I disagree with. I think you can have abortions within a certain period of time, and if it's done properly. But I don't think we should be passing legislation for or against it. I think it should be, available, but we shouldn't be saying, "Oh, as a healthcare insurer, you must provide abortions at this rate." It has to happen. So that's the thing with Planned Parenthood is it needs either to be completely private, and you guys, the females,
I don't think it should be completely private, but that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen if Trump says, "Hey, we're taking the funding away, guys. It's going to go completely private."
He was saying to scale it down.
Well, from what you and I had talked about, I understood that he was taking it away because you said that.
Oh no! My apologies. I meant scaling it down.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, what does that do? You take the money away, it becomes more private, right?
Okay.
Private organizations do private things. Private things are not always good.
Well, then they need to be held to the standards of a healthcare organization, which they're not. As an organization, they are not held to healthcare standards. Facilities that perform.
You cannot take the money away and let that become more private. I think that, look, you look at the country. You take socialism and capitalism, you split it 50-50, you're good. Right?
I don't think it should be 50-50. I mean, splitting 50-50 is a bit extreme.
Okay, but you take it, you implement ideas from both. Okay? You're good.
Okay.
There's still problems, but you're good. All right? Now you take Planned Parenthood. You take it a little bit private, a little bit government, you're good. I don't think that it needs to be one way or the other. I think that yes, there should be regulation. It should be regulated.
I think as long as it's receiving federal dollars, it needs a lot more federal investigation and regulation. As long as it's receiving that money, it needs more involvement.
All right, so give me something you want them to regulate.
Let's go with the abortion process. Right now, a lot of them provide late-term abortions. Right now, a lot of them do not provide aftercare for people that received abortions, which leads to health problems with the, now non-mother. So you're saying that you're giving them an abortion, which is killing a kid when it's late term. It is much more harmful to the mother. And then you're saying, oh, good luck, is essentially what you're saying. If you want to do that.
Good luck with what?
With whatever health complications may come afterwards.
But we have Obamacare as of right now. And if we have someone implementing a better idea, that person who gets the boot out of Planned Parenthood after the abortion can walk their fucking happy ass, now not being a parent, to the fucking hospital.
Again, that depends what plan you're provided. When you time to Obamacare, we don't know the details yet, so I think it's a bit too early to analyze that.
It is too early, but I'm saying that would be the ideal situation.
Right. So hopefully these play into each other well.
So if that happens, what's something else we could regulate? Because I personally do not know 100% everything about Planned Parenthood.
Neither do I. By no means, full disclaimer, I don't know everything about Planned Parenthood either. Right now, they have sections that are called Other Women's Services, which really aren't concrete. We could, if it's going to be an organization like that, there needs to be concrete. What falls under Other Women's Services? What do you consider to fall under the treatment of STIs and STDs? Testing is pretty self-explanatory. What methods of contraception are you giving out? What are your regulations for abortions? For the majority,
it's birth control and condoms.
Right. What type of birth control and condoms? Are you giving them, there are different types of birth control. I mean, condoms are generally
there's
very standard.
Too,
Right. But when it comes to, birth control is a chemical. So when it comes to the chemicals that are used in a birth control pill, there's different proportions of certain chemicals. There's different times. There's different frequencies. So, why we should regulate that? Are you providing the cheapest birth control you can possibly find? Or are you going full out and spending millions on birth control that may not be worth that much?
I can guarantee you this, Mike, that you take the government funding away or the majority of it away, yeah, you're getting the cheapest birth control. You're getting
Then that's something we have to look at.
That's going to fucking break, and you're going to nut inside your girl and have to have an abortion.
That's something we need to look at, because right now we don't know what contraception they're giving out.
If you take the money away, or you take the majority of the money away, and they go with the cheap contraception, they go with the cheap condoms, they go with the cheap birth control, your abortion rates are going to spike. Your STI rates are going to spike. Because
that's the thing is you need to find. Then you need to find the ground of they need to, if they're going to receive federal funding, they need to be open to the fact of there being regulation on the type of contraception, on what treatments for STIs and STDs they do, on rules regarding their abortions. That's what I'm saying. If they want the federal funding, they need to be more transparent with the federal government and the people that the federal government represents. That's my standpoint on it. The
government just needs to be more transparent with us in general, though.
Okay. I mean, sure, but we know the funding that a lot of the Department of Defense gives away. We know where a lot of it goes. Maybe not specifically. We don't know how much, how much money went to, we don't know how much money went to this tank or that airplane. No, we know this much was spent on vehicles for the Navy. We know this much was spent on personnel fees for the Air Force.
See, I want to know that, though. I want to know that. I want to know.
That is out there.
I want to know what vehicles are spending it on. I want to know how much that vehicle is.
That becomes a risk of national security.
But look, I just want to make sure it's not like some fucking private dickhead just got a new Mercedes off of my fucking taxes.
There are rules and regulations regarding that. I mean, obviously they buy Mercedes when it comes down to clandestine operations where you can't be driving a tank or a military style vehicle through. Yes, they do provide money. I think that's more Department of Homeland Security and Department of State more than Department of Defense. But yes, they will buy vehicles that are not like military for the purposes of training
you can't drive in a fucking Honda?
Obviously, it depends circumstance to circumstance. They're not buying some scooter. They're not buying some dude a random Mercedes just for him to drive personally.
They're not buying you your privately owned vehicles.
It's all going to
I understand that, but these people with these fucking taxpayer dollars sure do live a fucking lavish life.
Who in specific?
Who in specific?
Like, what do you mean by that?
Politicians, Mike.
Well, okay, you said politicians. We were just talking about the Department of the Defense budget.
I'm sorry.
Yes, there are tons of politicians.
I'm going off.
You're going all over. A lot of politicians make tons of money, and that's due to lobbyists, which Trump is trying to combat.
I guess what I was trying to say, if there's people like that who have taxpayer dollars, there's people in the Department of Justice who are going to be the same way. Like where you and me might look and be like, oh, Honda's a more economical choice, right? And then there's people who we live with or live around who will be like, fuck that, I'm driving the Benz.
Well, actually, the thing is with politicians is the vast majority of their money does not come from taxpayer dollars. A lot of it comes from private interests and lobbyists, which that's the problem is you have congressmen and politicians who are more concerned with making their private interest groups happy because that's where they're getting their money and a lot of their support and commercials as opposed to making the people happy. That's where the issue comes down. You have congressmen who, the moment they're elected, are more concerned with lobbying to get elected again than they are to make sure they're passing legislation and making sure that their people are properly represented.
And that's a problem.
That is a problem, and that's what Donald Trump is claiming he's going to try and combat.
I don't think that anyone really can combat that, though.
Well, there's definitely legislation there used to be legislation saying that once you got out of the federal government, you could not lobby for X amount of years.
Look, I think it's more of like when you have somebody like Donald Trump, like, hey, I'm going to switch up the fucking game, right? You're going to have a lot of people who fucking hate him, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And that's any time you propose
people already hate him regardless.
Exactly. And I think I just personally don't trust the government. So like the whole JFK thing, I know a lot of people don't think that was a conspiracy to kill JFK. I think it was. So what I think is when someone comes in and says, hey, I'm going to switch everything up, I'm going to do this, this, and this, I'm going to get rid of this person, I'm going to get rid of that person, those people don't want to lose their jobs. It's like, hey, time to kill that dude. You know what I mean?
Well, they're not losing their jobs. Well, they are being forced to do their job.
If they can't come back, You know what
Well,
I
they
mean?
can come back. They can still come back. There's no law would stop them from doing that. The law makes them do their job, which the people are going to support. If he needs to hold it to a referendum, if he needs to hold it to a popular vote, he can do that. He can motion for that. The Department of Justice can support him motioning for that. The Supreme Court can approve that. If we need to hold a Brexit type vote where it's every person is one vote, I'm for that if it's to hold the government responsible for the job it's supposed to have. By all means, you bet your ass I'll be a voting booth that
There's
day.
so much that goes into that, though. It's like you couldn't even have a fucking podcast with that much shit.
Right. That goes into a lot more like federal process and where it's going on that end. But we started getting a little bit conspiracy theorist. So
yeah, true.
Is it appropriate to?
We should have a podcast for conspiracy theories.
That'd be lit.
We could definitely
let us know if you guys
that.
want us to do that shit because that'd be fucking lit.
Yeah.
So
if
on that
even,
note,
like watching this or listening,
we'll
to
eventually watch it. Yeah. So on that note, let's transition into topic number 3, which
God,
was Dominic.
My good shit.
Yeah, Dominic's Anonymous, which is a little bit conspiracy.
I thought I had a good transition,
no, it's not,
but no one recognized
it. It's not conspiracy theorist, Mike, because it's
okay. We'll sort of counter ideas, not popular opinion ideas.
It's more of like a media type thing,
right?
Because you have these people. So, for instance, I follow this group on Facebook. It claims to be anonymous. Now, I know for a fact that it's not actually the people running shit with anonymous because there is no people.
Yeah, because there is no head. Yeah.
So with that, I know it's not like too reliable.
Right.
But this really takes a turn more into the whole media thing. The fact is, though, before a couple months back, before the election that ended, there was Vladimir Putin fucking made a speech, and it was basically like, we're not dealing with America's shit, right?
Correct.
And it got a lot of people.
Not dealing with the current American.
The current American
shit.
problems.
I.e. being Obama, primarily.
Yeah, i.e. Obama and fucking Putin not getting along. So that's basically what it discussed. And it was just like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the page said. It was just like, hey, Vladimir Putin and Obama are basically disagreeing. That's pretty much what it said. But there was that little sense of like fear mongering where it was like, Vladimir Putin says he's going to do this if Obama does this. Like there was that. But the fact is, now prior to the election ending, I see the same speech pop up. Except this time it's got a different title. This time, I believe the title was Final Warning to America from Putin. Sounds scary, right?
Yeah, sounds very clickbaitish.
And that's the thing. It was so people could click on it. And you go,
right.
I fucking clicked on it with my dumb ass. So I click on it, and I go down, and it's the same shit I just saw fucking 6 months ago. You know? And
right.
I feel like this is this goes more into like the people backing people because it used to be a reliable page, right?
Right.
And what I think probably happened was it was like, hey, push this, we'll throw you some money from someone, I don't know who, but from someone. And that's where I'm trying to get in. That whole fucking thing is wrong. And that needs to fucking change. And I want to figure out ideas to change that. I want not necessarily the government, but I want people to hold the media reliable. And I think that's where, with this podcast, I'm so excited because it's like me and you and Justin, we're real people, right? We're not funded by anyone. The government's not giving us money to do this podcast.
We come from all walks of life, too.
Yeah, we come from all walks of life.
A pretty good spectrum.
No one's saying, hey, push this idea and giving us a little cash for it. I mean, fuck, that'd be cool, even though I wouldn't do it. But no one's doing it. You know what I mean? So I think that people need to put media in check. And I'm really looking forward to. This is basically the topic. Is I'm just looking forward to doing this because I feel like not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people say, hey, this is fucking fake news. And you and I, Mike, both watch H3H3 Productions on YouTube.
Right.
Shout out to him. He's fucking great videos. But that's the thing is he'll say something and it gets like a couple million views, maybe like 2 million views.
Right.
Right. But that's not on TV. That's not saying that the news got it wrong.
The deal is, with you look at H3, Ethan and Ela Klein, any one of those YouTube channels, I'm not looking at them for news. I'm not. The problem becomes when you have major news reporters like CNN, and for some reason now we're looking at BuzzFeed and Vox and Mike and MTV News as serious news outlets, which they're not. Let's clear that up right now. Not one of them is serious news.
The thing is, they do the fucking clickbait that I was just talking about with Anonymous.
Right, but the Anonymous,
how on YouTube people make a fucking video and they put someone's tits in the title or in the fucking
right.
Clip.
But even now,
whoa, she shows her tits. Everyone clicks on.
Even now, if you were to look at Anonymous, I bet you the vast majority of people would not consider them a serious news source. The problem is people are looking at BuzzFeed and thinking, oh, this is reliable, which is why you get that thing that happened a few weeks ago where there was that intelligence report that was leaked that Trump urinates on Russian prostitutes, all that stuff, and CNN reported it. It originally came from BuzzFeed.
You know what's funny?
It was fake.
After I saw that, a couple of hours after I saw the same article, but it basically replaced Trump with Obama.
Yeah, the thing is, it started with BuzzFeed, and then CNN picked it up and reported it as real news. They didn't report this as a warning of like, hey guys, watch out, this is crap. No, they're like, this is real. This is a real intelligence report. The issue is, before BuzzFeed picked it up, it had been around about 3 months prior. And it had been shut down by professional analysts going and saying, no, this is fabricated. This is crap. And so when BuzzFeed started circulating it and then CNN put it on national television, those same analysts spoke up and was like, yeah, we already disproved that 4 months ago. You do realize like that is ancient mythology now. Like it's fake as fuck. And so Trump he had the press conference later that night, and which was almost entirely focused on fake news and that sort of slander that goes around. And he called CNN fake news on national television. And he did not provide them a question. Now, the left lost their mind. It was like, how could he not provide CNN with a question? It's like, well, Obama did that frequently. Not every single reporter that gets into the press conference gets a question. If you firmly believe that every single person in that room who raises their hand gets a question, you're a fucking moron. The problem was that Trump directly said it. He said directly to the CNN reporter's face, I am not answering your question. He didn't do what Obama does, where you're just like, oh, I'm not talking to you or you or you, but you look cool, so I'll talk to you. No, he said it. And that, again, is what was why some people voted for him, was that idea if he tells it like it is. He told it like it was, whether you like it or not. He said, you're fake news. You circulated this stupid story on national television in order to try and, I guess, further that whole idea of, well, Russia hacked the election. Trump is Russia's puppet. All that.
No, that's what it is. It's all trying to stir the pot metaphorically. It's like, right. It's all trying to turn public opinion against certain people, and that may just be because some people are just complete trolls and love to see chaos, or that could be people trying to fulfill their public or their private agenda.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look when Trump won.
This definitely though is not the first time we've seen any of that. Like
even since Trump won,
we've seen this.
Right,
this has been a thing.
Certificate thing with Obama. That was throughout all 8 years. But with Trump, you've already seen like 4 or 5 instances. When he won, it was the whole, what was it? Call for a recount because the popular vote doesn't match up. When the recount showed that Trump actually earned more votes, like the 2 states that did a recount, Clinton lost votes, Trump gained them. Good job, Jill Stein. I'm sure those Clinton dollars
don't understand the Electoral College.
Right, and then that comes next. It's, the Electoral College is unconstitutional. It's BS. It's like, no, we were actually never designed to be a direct democracy. We've always been designed to be a democratic republic, to be a constitutional republic, which is what the Electoral College is. Let's get that straight, first of all. And after that, it was like the whole alt-right. Oh, my God, it's the racists. The racists supported Donald Trump. Everyone's racist. Donald Trump's a racist. Get the racists out of the Oval Office. All that crap. Then after that didn't work, it was the whole Russia hacked the election, which, look, now that he's inaugurated, have you seen how not many of those news articles pop up anymore? Now that they realize it's too late, he's president, we're not going to do it, all of a sudden, those aren't being circulated as much. I think that's really ironic.
But now that could come down to they're going to start pushing harder to maybe get him impeached.
Yeah, I mean, they could try. The problem is the Republicans control the Congress and the Supreme Court. So I really don't think impeachment, unless he does something really, really bad, I don't think impeachment is going to happen. I really don't. So again, Dominic, you brought up a good point. If there is corruption in the media, and by corruption, I don't mean bias.
Well, I mean,
Every media source is
I also want to
biased.
get a little conspiracy theorist on you.
Okay.
So, I mean, is that your final point on it?
That corruption and bias are different. Every media source, even we're technically biased. I mean, we try and present both sides.
We're biased. We're not corrupt, though. That's the thing.
Right, but we're not corrupt. There is a difference.
We're not being
By
paid
corrupt,
to
I
say
don't mean
something else
bias.
that then.
Yeah.
Justin, did you have a final point on it before I go a
Yeah,
little
let's
bit
see if Justin has a final point.
I don't know, because I'm just still trying to process all this that's kind of been going on.
Long day.
Been a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, this will be the last point.
Yeah, I'll go after you.
Well, I'm going to go into like a completely different twist.
Yeah,
So
hit us with this final point, and then if Justin has anything to say, we'll go there, and then we'll sign off.
All right,
sure.
Cool. I just wanted to say anonymous was a very prevalent thing when it first started up and coming, correct?
Yeah, when it was first in the early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, so then it becomes people start to see anonymous as a threat, right? They start making threats to.
Well, yeah, they hacked a lot of federal government servers.
Well, yeah, so
they did become a threat.
Starts to be seen as a threat, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's more of just like I do want to urge like people who listen to this and stuff like that. Want to urge them to anything that says anonymous does not mean it is anonymous, because I think that there's a lot of things on the internet where it'll say, oh, anonymous said this, anonymous said that, anonymous said this. I think that in a way, people, not necessarily the government, but people of power got a little frightened and they tried to defraud the name of anonymous.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm getting to a point now. I feel like the anonymous thing is probably dead or close to dead.
Yeah.
Something else will probably rise and take its place. I'm almost sure of that. But anonymous was not there was no hierarchy. There was no real network. It was very random. And I think
anonymous was all basically the whole premise of it was we are random, like essentially random people from all different walks of life fighting for what we like collectively believe in. And
right.
Yeah.
I feel like organizations and people took advantage of that and said like, oh, I mean, if no one knows who they are, then no one's going to know that I'm not anonymous.
Yeah.
Right. You can't copyright something that technically doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have people, like I said earlier, pushing their personal agendas.
Yeah. I'm sure it's copyrighted as that dumb Shakespeare movie that came out however many years ago.
Anyways, yeah, just to throw a little bit of a conspiracy out there.
I mean, it's totally possible. You could steal names all the time. People do it. It's on the internet. There's no reason why someone wouldn't take what used to be this like voice of the people and then use it as a voice of the establishment.
And I mean, in a way, it's just like what people do with Trump, where like he could say something and people try and undermine him by saying he said some other stupid shit.
Right.
It happens all the time. I guess that's really it for the podcast.
Justin, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm pretty good.
All right. Well, to anyone who listens to this, thank you very much for listening. This has been Grab 'em by the Policy, the official podcast of the Independent Interference. For more information, find us at our website. Contact information will be there. We plan on uploading one of these every week to YouTube, the website, SoundCloud, if I eventually get revenue, hopefully iTunes and platforms like that.
It'll most likely be like Sunday, Monday.
Sometime around late Saturday or Sunday, Monday time, weekend or early week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably try and make podcasts if any really important news comes out of nowhere. But other than that, expect to
like Donald Trump peeing on Russians.
Or like fucking running over other people with a fucking truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see where all that goes. Until then, my name is Michael.
Hey, it's Dominic.
And it's Justin.
And this has been Grab 'em by the Policy, the official podcast of the Independent Interference.